This is your Chargers linebacker, Dan Henley, and you're tuning in with Chargers Unleashed.
Welcome to another edition of Chargers Unleashed. Jake Hefner and Dan Wolkenstein here with you from the LAFB Network. If this is your first time tuning in to the show, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Dan Wolkenstein, it seems like forever since we have said the words Victory Monday, Brisket Monday, whatever it is you want to say it.
Say it.
At least for this week, Dan Wolkenstein gets to take a pause on his storied villain arc that has taken place here over the last week. So it's a much more calmer day for Dan Wolkenstein. You can see the smile on his face. He's very happy as it stands right now, as are the rest of the Chargers fans that are out there after witnessing the Chargers defeat the Denver Broncos 23-16, getting their first victory at Mile High since 2018, which is just bonkers to think that it has been that long since the Chargers were able to get a victory there. But lots to break down. Obviously, key takeaways. Again, you still kind of see a little bit of a tale of two halves, but there were a lot of elements that went into this game and some good things to talk about, especially as it relates to some adjustments on the offensive side of the ball. But we'll get into all of it before we get into the nitty-gritty of it all, Dan. How are you, sir?
I'm good. Relieved. By any means necessary.
Sure you are.
By any means necessary. Chargers get out of there with a win, which, again, I'll take it by any means. Was it perfect? No. But there were a lot of things to be excited about and a lot of improvements that were made, as well as folks getting healthier, which is a big deal, and contributions by so many of Joe Ortiz's selections and free agency folks that were brought in. Again, not perfect, which we'll get to some of that. It's not all rainbows here. But for the most part, the Chargers set out and did what they were supposed to do. They went up against a really good Denver team. And with some fluky things happening throughout the game, we were able to pull out a victory. Justin Herbert looked like Justin Herbert of old, at least in the first half. Running game back on track. Rashawn Slater, Joe Alt back. And Chargers now 3-2 with a big test coming up Monday Night Football. But before we get to that, Jake, tell the fans, let's pay the bills. How are you? And then let's talk about our friends.
I'm great, but you know what's even better? BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. BetOnline has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. You think you know your stuff? Get in on our $200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at weekly prizes and share of $200K. When the game is over, head on over to our online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker, or unwind with one of our 150 slot games. Head on over to the website today. That's betonline.ag to get in on the action. BetOnline, the game starts here.
Jim Harbaugh gets his first win at Mile High, beating Sean Payton and rookie quarterback Bo Nix. The Denver defense was as advertised. Big blow to them. Patrick Surtain goes out early, which, again, like, it is a big deal. But that Denver defense, with or without Surtain, is legit. And they are fast, and they are physical, and they close quickly. And so credit to that defense, but credit to the Chargers offense for starting off fast. Let's talk about kind of the big 3 storylines of this Chargers victory, Jake. I think the first one, I would have to say that this Chargers offense started out aggressive. And it was something that you and I had talked about last week. I don't know why they weren't doing it before. Some of it had to do with health with Justin Herbert and his ankle and the protection. But it's as if they were listening to Chargers Unleashed when I had been clamoring for them to chuck it 100 yards to Darius Davis in or out of the field of play. Don't care. Chuck it to Lab.
How many did he get, by the way? For context, how many did Darius Davis get?
How many catches?
How many yards? How many catches?
Oh, well, Darius Davis. We're talking about catches and yards. Again, that wasn't important to me, but if you want to talk about that, Darius Davis, 2 carries.
I was just there.
14 yards.
And Dan Wolkenstein has the biggest smile on his face right now. Just wanted to make sure. That's all.
Yes, because you know what I'm looking at, Jake, is the targets. Darius Davis had 2 targets, one of which was a moonshot. Again, didn't get it, but it was there. Lad McConkey didn't get it, but it was there. Sammy Fehoko had a great catch. You saw deep play action and or aggressive shots down the field, especially right after the turnover. And what that does, I talked about it last week. Give the illusion that you can run is just as important as running. Given the illusion that you'll throw deep is just as important as throwing deep. Them doing that forced Denver's defense to have to get off of his toes a bit, stay on his heels, be a little bit more balanced. And you saw the Chargers able to capitalize on that. And Justin Herbert, his right arm looks pretty good. Ankle looks pretty good, and he was slinging it in the first half. By far the best half we saw from Justin Herbert in this offense. You got to give credit to not only Justin Herbert, but the receivers, Will Dissly involved there as well. Can't not talk about Kamani Vidal, by the way. But Greg Roman, I think he gets his flowers for the first half. That's story number one for me. Jake, what say you?
Yeah, Dan, clearly, and we'll talk about this more in context here, it shows a lot when you get your left tackle and your right tackle that have been a huge difference to this team when they're returning back in the lineup. You can tell when your quarterback is healthier in terms of evading oncoming rushers, being able to move around in the pocket, being able to do that play action that we've seen him do so well in the past. But Dan, to your point, I thought this was the most balanced offense that we have seen in terms of execution through their first 5 games. Justin Herbert obviously has his best game of the year just in terms of passing and efficiency, 34 attempts that he ended up doing for 237 yards and a touchdown, no interceptions. Great for him. And in terms of running the ball, you were still able to get the running game going with over 100 yards. J.K. Dobbins was obviously a big factor in that. And again, you go back to the creative play calling. I think that this was a little bit of Greg Roman and Jim Harbaugh kind of going back to the drawing board. And especially with, Dan, we talked about it. We got that final injury report when we were doing the show last Friday. And when Gus Edwards was out, we knew that Kamani Vidal was going to be active for this game. And sure enough, those were the type of plays and passes that I think have been eluding the Chargers. And again, you want to talk about giving the illusion that you can run or what you're going to be putting out in the backfield. That's not so predictable to the defense. And sure enough, there's Kamani Vidal that's open on a wheel route for 38 yards and a touchdown in his season debut, which was fantastic. But overall, I thought the Chargers putting together a 20-play offensive drive that took 10 minutes off the board, that's the type of drives that you want to have from a Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman-led offense. But it's not so much of just run, pass. It's Justin Herbert being able to do the things that he does best. You're able to pick your spots. You're able to pick those moments where you're able to run and pass and execute effectively. So, as you said, first half offensively, I thought it was great. You took advantage of turnovers. You put points up on the board. You got Denver into a 20-point hole by the time that halftime rolled around. And we said that that was the biggest objective for them, was to take away Denver's running game, which they did. You put this game on Bo Nix's shoulders to try to go out and beat you. Almost ended up doing that in the fourth quarter, but you put him in a 20-point hole, which is what you needed to do. And I thought in terms of executing that game plan on both offense and defense, they did it soundly.
We heard Jim Harbaugh coming off the bye talking about this team needing to be more crisp. Fast forward to the end of the game, just 3 penalties for 20 yards. And how often have we talked about in games past this offense getting behind the sticks because of lack of execution, boneheaded penalties, blunders, what have you. There was one offensive blunder penalty that was kind of a ticky-tack a little bit, which, I mean, it's the right call on the Josh Palmer offensive pass interference down there in the red zone. Other than that, the offense didn't shoot itself in the foot hardly at all during that game, which was huge. And you saw it in the balance. 9 different targets for Justin Herbert in this offense, spreading around. J.K. Dobbins was this close to 100 yards on the most carries he's had in his career for one game. But Justin Herbert, 237, 21 for 34, 7 yards per throw, had the touchdown, 92.4 quarterback rating. Not too shabby. A couple shout outs. Quentin Johnston. I thought he looked pretty good. I loved the grit he showed in that first reception. Forced 5 missed tackles in 1 catch alone. Turns nothing into something. Ladd McConkey, the kid is always open, and it is unfair. I thought he was fantastic. Thank the Lord that Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt are back. You can see the difference. And also, knock on everything, thank goodness that J.K. Dobbins is on this team. He is so good. And we haven't seen a running back like this in LA in a minute. And so that 2-headed attack of J.K. with Kamani Vidal, add in Gus Edwards when he comes back, that's a pretty good trio that you can use for all different things. Anything else on the offensive side before we get to headline number 2, which is the madman himself?
Outside of that, you talk about efficiency. Justin Herbert also made some just ridiculous throws in this game in terms of fitting the ball, threading the needle, and getting it in a tight spot to where it really shouldn't
be. Throw to Vidal was sick.
The Vidal throw, the crucial one to McConkey later on in the game, which was great. He was just on it yesterday. And again, coming off of a bye and seeing these tweaks and adjustments, especially offensively, which had crippled you for the last game and a half, it was good to see those things get shored up. And it was good to see Justin Herbert kind of get back a little bit to what we're accustomed to seeing. And I think that obviously has a big reason to do with how healthy he is, how's that ankle feeling, and what he's able to do to manipulate defenses and moving around in the pocket to evade pressure. You have to keep a defense honest. And still, even for that Denver defense, Dan, we're going to talk about some of the rookies stepping up here in a second. But even without Patrick Surtain, they did not allow a single receiver for the Chargers to go over 50 yards in that game, which is still impressive enough within itself. And there was pressure coming on Justin Herbert in that game because Denver's front line is no joke. But they were able to adapt. They were able to overcome some adversity throughout the game. And ultimately, they ended up doing what they needed to do.
Yeah. To go without saying, thankfully, the head coach is okay. You saw him leave the field briefly from, I think it was a heart arrhythmia issue that he had.
Which is just, first of all, insane. The fact that what took place within the first 5 minutes of the game. Patrick Surtain leaves due to a concussion. Jim Harbaugh all of a sudden goes into the blue tent on the sidelines and leaves. He even said in the locker room press conference, he didn't even get a chance to see Kamani Vidal's touchdown because he was in the back making sure that everything was okay with him.
Same with Elijah Molden. You didn't see the interception either.
And then Justin Herbert had revealed that he said that he was feeling that the night before, didn't realize how serious it was, but then Harbaugh talks about it in his post-game press conference, says, hey, I'm 2-0 when I've had this because the last time I had this is when I was in San Francisco on Monday Night Football.
Leave it to him. Yeah, I mean, but the interesting, I liked that Jesse Minter was the one who had the challenge flag in his absence, by the way. I don't know if you caught that.
Well, they immediately turned the keys over to him for that, little bit that Jim Harbaugh was off the field.
Yep. Yeah. But weird. And then Rashawn Slater goes out for a bit. Trey Pipkins goes out. Like the whole sequence was
out for a minute.
Unsettling. Quentin was out. Yeah. Yeah. So thankfully, all of that seems to be okay. Otherwise, I think this team offensively for the first half, I think that was a big story, and that carried them throughout. A couple things happened in the second half, which we'll get to in some of the improvements for later. But overall, I thought that was a good sign for Greg Roman coming off of the bye and this offense putting a little bit more on Justin Herbert. Again, some of that is because of his health, but some of that is recognizing that he is your best player, and you live and die by your best player and their abilities. Jake, the Madman Minter was at it again, pitching an absolute shutout again through 3 quarters-ish. And I think they are now they have allowed the 4th fewest points of any Chargers team in the last 40 years. Which, think about that.
It's pretty good.
And that's because the only reason why they're 4th is because of the Cortland Sutton quote-unquote touchdown that was given up. Otherwise, they are 2nd best in the last 40 years for this Chargers team. Nevertheless, Jesse Minter has this defense cooking, and the best sign of a connected defense is when a player is out and you don't even notice it. And you saw it with Asante Samuel Jr. You saw it with Joey Bosa being out. The secondary was kind of going through a lot of things throughout the game. That defense never lost touch. And the secondary, which I'll get to improvements and things that were a little bit concerning later on. But for the most part, in my opinion, that was a stellar performance by this Chargers defense, especially in the back half, all game. For the front, probably for 3 quarters. But Jesse Minter, again, doesn't matter who your competition is. The fact is, your defense is balling. And we've seen this Chargers team, Jake. How many times have we seen them lower the bar to the competition and make insert quarterback look like the front runner for MVP? And for 3 quarters, it wasn't the case. I thought the defense again, as advertised.
Dan, I'm glad you kind of ended with that little nugget there, because it's more than just the defense coming up, making plays, making tackles when they need to. They just seem to be around the ball at every opportunity. You look at the Elijah Molden interception. Tip drills have eluded the Chargers for a number of different years. They've been making their own tip drills and turnovers so far this year. Yesterday was no different. They just seem to be swarming the ball, and there always seems to be multiple players around where everything is happening. Yes. And I think that's really kind of the core of what Jesse Minter wants them to have. Outside of obviously stepping up, making plays, which they're going to do, it's just the standpoint is everybody get to the ball. In some form or fashion, just be there when the whistle is blown. And I think that's something that you've seen from this Chargers team through their first 5 games defensively. You mentioned it, Dan. You could say whatever you want in terms of the schedule and who the Chargers have played, opposite quarterbacks. That's totally fine. But the Chargers don't make the schedule. And traditionally, as Dan mentioned, we've seen them play down to their previous opponents under different coaching regimes. Constantly. And we would have known the result of those situations when it came to that. We've talked about it numerous times already this season to say, in that type of situation previously, the Chargers don't win those games. They would lose those games. They would find a way to lose those games. It's not the case here. However you want to measure the barometer, the Chargers have only allowed 20 points or more one time this season. And that wasn't even against the best quarterback in the NFL. Say what you want, but in terms of those stats, that's something to be proud of as it relates to Jesse Minter and what he has this defense doing in a short period of time. You mentioned the cornerbacks, Dan. I think this might be a good time to just talk about the rookie stepping up. We already knew, kind of even surprised, that Asante Samuel Jr. was not going to be active for this game. I'm not sure still there hasn't been any word.
Shoulder.
Well, as far as what happened go from full practice on Thursday to out for the game.
All we know is that it was not on the field.
Yes. Take from that what you will. I don't know if we'll ever really understand what happened. So you're out Asante Samuel Jr. You already knew that you were out Jasir Taylor for this game, which meant Tarheeb Still was going to be stepping up in the slot. Dean Leonard, who was already coming into this game questionable, still ended up playing, but he ended up going out in the game, which elevated more play for your other 5th-round draft pick in Cam Hart.
Christian Fulton also went out for a bit.
Christian Fulton also goes out throughout the duration of this game. So Jesse Minter, on top of that, having to shuffle around pieces, because once Christian Fulton went out, Derwin James was essentially just playing in the nickel until the end of that game. Tarheeb still had to move out of the slot, go to the outside, and to have all of those things and moving those pieces around in that type of aspect when you're dealing with that much adversity, credit to the players and credit to the coaching. I know that you obviously, it was obvious when the points started getting scored late in the 4th quarter, when you are down that many guys in the secondary, those type of things are going to happen. As Dan mentioned, like for that first half, you couldn't tell who was or wasn't on the field. But in the 4th quarter, you could, because you can only stop the bleeding for so long when you have that many of your starting defensive secondary out.
I will push back a little bit. And I've seen this from folks on social media too, that have said, the secondary they let go the foot off the gas and they were playing too soft and all that kind of stuff. Go back and watch. In my opinion, I don't think that was the issue. The issue was they played a certain way against Bo Nix in the first 3-ish quarters. And then the last quarter, it felt like this team, from a front perspective, going after Bo Nix, was trying to deliver that final knockout punch, was trying to deliver that final strip sack, forced fumble on Bo Nix to end this game. And instead of staying true to their assignment and to what they were supposed to be doing and containing Bo Nix, they went for that kill shot and got hit every time by Bo Nix's athletic abilities and him scrambling outside, extending series, extending drives, and therefore creating points. There were at least 5 different times from Bud Dupree, Derwin James a couple times, Bud Dupree a couple times. There was one more as well that They had Bo Nix dead to rights in the backfield, but they lost containment. Bo Nix scrambles, gets a first down with his legs, or throws a pass on the edge and turns it into points or extended drives. That was the difference in why the Broncos were ultimately able to turn into points and touchdowns at the end of the game. It wasn't that the secondary was letting up, or wasn't the secondary was playing soft or prevent or the talent level. It wasn't that. It was just there's only so much time that they can hold on to these guys in coverage before they're athletes on offense too. And so area for concern later as you go up against the Kyler Murray offense and that scramble opportunity that he has.
We've seen that before.
They have to stay true to their containment assignments. And they just didn't do it in the fourth quarter. And I might do a little separate episode just on that, but I give credit to the secondary. I thought the secondary played 100%. Fantastic throughout, given all the adversity and all the ins and outs. I give them their flowers. I do wish, though, I don't know what's going on. And some of it is obviously Joey Bosa not playing, but sometimes the pass rush just disappears. And Bud Dupree, I don't think really had a great game, even for his standards. Derwin James was kind of feast or famine. At times, Derwin James looked fantastic and was a man on fire. But at times, Derwin James was too on fire and took himself out of the play. Derwin James afterwards said that he didn't realize Bo Nix had it in him, some of the athleticism that he displayed. And so he's looking forward to the next time they play. But overall, given what happened, I know the final score wasn't as lopsided as it should have been. But for the most part, again, you'd rather have these lessons after a victory, and especially in Mile High. You got to give credit to Jesse Minter and his ability as a coach and the whole coaching staff on defense, because what he's doing with the talent level on this team, and you mentioned Cam Hart, Tarheeb Still, that goes on both sides of the ball. I think the other part that's important to focus on, Jake, that's probably, I would think might be the next big thing for me for this Chargers team so far, is just looking at the rookies and how well they are performing. And you could put that on rookies or the free agents that have been brought in. But go down the list of Joe Alt, Ladd McConkey, Junior Colson, Cam Hart, Tarheeb Still, Kamani Vidal. These are all contributing rookie years, and they're making impact plays. That Tarheeb Still pass breakup in the first quarter, when they were up 10-0, that could have easily been a panic mode button for Tarheeb Still, pass interference. Instead of it being 10-0 punt, it's 10-0 with Denver in the red zone at the 5-yard line. Tarheeb Still was perfect there. Cam Hart looked great in the flats in tackling. Kamani Vidal, take a bow. We've all seen Ladd McConkey, Joe Alt. We know that. Junior Colson continues to do Junior Colson things. I think he was good in coverage for the most part. But then you look at not just rookies, Jake, but the other guys that they brought in on some of these prove-it deals have just, more of them than not, have proven to work out and have proven to be well worth their contract.
Elijah Molden getting his second interception of the season. Tahir Tart coming up with the fumble recovery. Poona Ford, who still just quietly ends up being a huge anchor against the run for this defensive line. Remember, Bo Nix, Dan was talking about the athletic ability of Bo Nix. Bo Nix was your leading rusher yesterday for the Denver Broncos. Outside of that, and I'm sure that it had to do something with the 20-point lead that the Chargers put up, but Javonte Williams only had 23 yards. He was your highest rushing running back for Denver's backfield. You took the running game completely out of it. But when
49 yards combined for all Broncos offensive players not named Bo Nix.
When the Denver Broncos tried to rush it, they just simply couldn't do it because of Poona Ford. And
Denzel Perriman.
Key 2-point conversion. Stop. We all know that Denzel has always been good against the run, but that was a critical moment that really could have shifted how the Denver Broncos were going to attack and how that game may have ended up.
Christian Fulton I mean, you can go down the list of the free agents or trades that they've made with these guys. Will Dissly blocking. I mean, it goes on and on and on. Now, have all of them been stellar? No. Are some we're still waiting on? Sure. But think about the sheer volume of hits that Joe Ortiz has had.
I feel like we are talking more about free agent impacts, regardless of how you want to look at it on the barometer in terms of how much of an impact they're making. We're talking more about this class of free agents by week 6 than we ever talked about the free agent spending spree that Tom Telesco went in with everybody that he brought in for that
at
defense.
A fraction of the cost.
Take from that what you will.
Rookies are stepping up in a big way. Free agents are stepping up in a big way. But we said it when they brought in Joe Ortiz, and we saw some moves he's been making and how they're constantly trying to churn and improve this roster top to bottom. Take a bow, Joe Ortiz, in the scouting department and Jim Harbaugh and company. This is stuff that Chargers fans have not seen. We have not seen acquisitions and selections pay dividends this early at this high of a rate. Now, again, season's still early. But so far, Joe Ortiz has been in his bag. Shout out to Joe Ortiz, man.
I'm sure coaching also has something to do with it.
But of course.
At the end of the day, you the front office is what puts together the team on the field. And then it's up to the coaches to coach them up. But yes, in general, it's been a long time since the Chargers have had an acquisition like that, had a number of acquisitions like that, all contributing with their rookie class. It's been a long time since that has taken place.
100%. Jake, we have 3 voicemails from yesterday's victory. Chargers Unleashed hotline, 323-902-7586. 323-902-7586. Let's get some of these. I have to remind folks, when we do voicemails, please try to keep it to 30 seconds. We have something here that are literally like 3 minutes long, so I apologize. We're not going to get to all of it. But 3 voicemails. Let's listen to the first one. Let's see what they have to say.
Hi, my name is Michael Sepulveda. I'm a Chargers fan. My thoughts about the game, man, it was going good in the first half. Second half, I was biting all my nails, very nervous, and it was just nerve-wracking every minute as the fourth quarter kept going. I just couldn't wait for the last seconds of the game. It should have not been that close. The defense, I don't know what happened to the defense. The defense went trick-or-treating or something. But this game had everything, had drama, excitement, and then back to drama, and then nervousness. It started off with players going into the locker room, the coach going into the locker room. Man, this game had everything.
I'll stop it there. It goes on and on and on and on and on.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
I mean,
talk about
I'm
drama.
sure everybody was sharing in Michael's feelings towards the end of that game. It's like, oh God, it feels so good being up 20-0 at halftime. And then you get to the fourth quarter and you're like, oh, not again.
Oh, we all had that feeling like, here we go again.
Here we go. You know, it's just, since that, I mean, we talk about that Panthers game so much because it is a rarity that you could actually really feel comfortable to just sit back, pop open a beverage, throw your feet up, and not have to grimace and fear and be terrified at what the final score might be before the clock hits 000. Again, it's traditionally Chargers teams under previous regimes, I don't think, win that game. Not in Mile High, not under those conditions, not when you look at all the interchanging pieces that were coming out both offensively and defensively for that. They would have figured out a way to, as we've said for many years, play down to their competition. And sadly, does everybody remember the Drew Lock game from years ago? Because I do. It probably would have ended up very, very similar to that had it been under different coaching, different personnel, and different circumstances.
Voicemail number 2.
I am so happy that we won this game. This is the exact type of game we used to lose. This super close, comes down to the end, we collapse and lose. This is Harbaugh's culture coming in clutch, and I'm so happy. Bolt up.
Short, succinct, perfectly executed. Well done on the voicemail, by the way. And I love the drama in his voice. It was so pointed. This is how Chargers football should be run.
Couldn't have said it any better, honestly. We really need to take note of this. If there's one thing to really just analyze from Jim Harbaugh, is that, you go back and you talk about those Chargers always lose the close games, or they had 5 games that they lost by 3 points or more. So they were always in it. This just feels different. You have a much better feeling of confidence that whether you're talking offensively, defensively, this team is going to try to find a way to figure it out. Mm-hmm. And in a lot of ways, they do, especially when you think of the defensive aspect and holding Kansas City to 17 points. You go back and you look at the rest of this game, it is indeed the culture. And yes, it's Jim Harbaugh. And yes, it's Jesse Minter. But this is what happens when you have good coaching that comes in and affects players like this, and everybody buys in to what is being said. And even for the players themselves in situations that end up being close, they're not blinking out there. They're still finding ways to win. Yes, to 100%. Dan's point early, and I agree with it, it's not flawless. You like to see some of those things clean up. You'd like to see a rookie quarterback not come back and put 16 points up on the board in the fourth quarter. But again, these are types of games that you're going to find yourselves in throughout the duration of the season, regardless of the opponent. But more often than not, in the past, the Chargers lose these type of games, and now they're winning them. It's great.
They are. Feels good. I don't know what to do with my hands. This is one of those moments where we're so used to seeing this Chargers team having to go toe-to-toe with every offense, scoring 35-40 and losing by 36 or 41. And right now, it's kind of the opposite, where your defense is going to keep you in it, but can your offense do enough? And Jake, you and I talked about it on the last preview show. Then get to 20, and you win. Sure enough, they get to 20, 23. Second half struggle on offense is still a thing, but they get enough to get the victory. Last voicemail.
Hey, Chargers Unleashed. What's going on? This is Gerald once again from Connecticut.
What's up, Gerald? How are you, my friend? Happy Victory Monday. Brisket's on the grill.
Heard the Chargers won again today.
Jake, did you know the Chargers won?
That's news to me.
Oh, we should do an episode.
Okay.
Should we go live?
It's a great idea. Yeah, let's do it now.
3, 2, 1.
Go.
Winning in Mile High for the first time since 2018. That's a huge, huge deal. After they've had their struggles in Denver historically, so this is a big win in Denver because they don't usually win there. Justin Herbert looked very solid, back to his old self, a little bit more healthier and more fluid. Having those 2 tackles, Slater and Alt coming back, is a big deal. J.K. Dobbins is a beast running the ball. Feel the offense is slowly but surely going to get everything straightened out, hopefully going to get even better. The offense, of course, has had issues for most of the season, but I think it's slowly starting to get it turned around.
I'll have to cut it there. Again, try to keep it 30 seconds because we only have so much time on these, but I love the voicemails. And yes, Jake, I think the key piece here, again, thank you for the voicemails. Again, you can call into Chargers Unleashed hotline anytime. We love interacting with you guys on those.
Dan, I said it earlier, the difference that you have when you have your all-pro left tackle in Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt hitting the ground running the way that he has at right tackle, it makes the rest of the offensive line better. We saw what it looked like when it wasn't there, and it was nasty. It was nasty. On top of this, Justin Herbert was healthier during this game. Obviously, the bye week did him a big favor. He was able to move around in the pocket and evade pressure much better. Again, you're going to use him on a lot of those play action plays, which you really just couldn't use that much during those aspects of the Pittsburgh game and obviously during the Kansas City game. You got back to it. I really think that when we were talking about this was an opportunity for them to go back to the drawing board, retool, make some adjustments, tweak things. I could just imagine right now Herbert, Roman, and Harbaugh just sitting at a fireside chat saying like, okay, what are we going to do in week 6? What are we going to do when we play the Denver Broncos? And yes, it's still not perfect, not flawless, but in terms of execution, crisper play,
crispiness,
however the hell Jim Harbaugh wanted to say it, the self-inflicting penalties in terms of offensively, not there. They were not game-killing drives the way that we had seen over the previous 2 weeks. Justin Herbert looked much more efficient, obviously healthier on the move, had his best day of the year just in terms of his pass attempts and overall production of yardage and just balance in general. They didn't fully go away from the run, but when you're able to keep a defense on its heels and not be so predictable, you're able to mix it up. This is the type of offense that you could do. The only hope that you have now is that the one issue that has yet to be corrected that we did not see yesterday, Dan, is putting points on the board in the second half and really putting that kill shot to your opponent. So hopefully moving forward, because when you look at the next string of the Chargers opponents that they have coming up, yes, you still have 2 out of 3 that you need to go on the road and win. But in terms of strength of opponent,
they're winnable games.
These next 5 opponents that the Chargers have are extremely winnable. So they had said that this game against Denver kind of felt like the first spark that they could see themselves going on a run. We'll see what happens over the next few weeks.
Jake, so lessons learned, or lesson to learn as you wrap this thing up. Got a few more minutes. Positive and negative. We can go both ways here. What were some of the lessons that you think this Chargers team, or you hope that this Chargers team learned from this game?
That they learned from this game?
Or that we learned, either one.
Well, I mean, from what they learned, I hope you use the Bo Nix ability to escape the pocket as something to watch for moving forward for who you're going to have to beat. You know, we talked about for a number of different years, it seems like, as it relates to Chargers against mobile quarterbacks and containment. We've seen them struggle against them in the past. That's nothing new. So hopefully Jesse Minter is able to make note of that in terms of how he's going to be calling this defense moving forward and just reminding everybody to not allow these type of plays to happen. Offensively, I think you've got a little spark here, Dan. I think you've got a little spark here, not in terms of understanding now that Justin Herbert, when he's healthy, not to say that Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman did not know this prior, but you see the results of it. Justin Herbert had no problem throwing it 34 times yesterday. But also when your running game is improving, it's giving you that opportunity to keep a defense honest and not having Justin Herbert pressured as much as he was, especially the likes of that Kansas City game. You were living in 3rd and short situations for a majority of the game. You were able to stay ahead of the sticks. You were able to make critical 3rd down plays that kept those drives alive. Sami Fehoko, just one of the examples in terms of just making a spectacular catch in a crucial drive that kept that alive. Yes. But these are the type of things. And Dan, again, it's just the mentality of stepping up.
Next man
Traditionally, when you would have, let's just say if this was a game where you didn't have Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and you lost them in the same type of situation and they were out for the game, yes, you'd have Joshua Palmer up there, but would there have been any confidence really to say that he was going to be the one that was going to carry you the rest of the way? I don't think so. But that's the type of mentality that this coaching staff has now injected into this team and with these players. And obviously with a much more creative scheme. Dan getting a little bit of what he wanted last week in terms of seeing Darius Davis injected into this offense a little bit more.
A healthy Darius Davis.
Darius Davis with Kamani Vidal getting his opportunity to come in. The Chargers were able to use that running backs in the passing game a little bit, something that we didn't really see when it was J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards back there. So offensively, I think you learned a lot. And I think that you can build off of that moving forward. Now, getting certain guys back, let's see what else the wrinkle is going to look like eventually when DJ Chark returns to this team. How are they going to add him into this passing attack, which I'm very excited to see. Defensively, Dan, I don't have a damn thing to say, which is tremendous as it relates to Jesse Minter. The guy just keeps finding ways to create negative plays for an opposing offense. Keeping them at bay, having the point total down to where it is at this point in time is absolutely ridiculous. And when you think about events that took place yesterday, that you were still able to hold the dam under those circumstances. I love it. Jesse Minter has done an absolutely phenomenal job that people need to be talking about more.
100%. You mentioned the defense. Here's a couple stats for you. Do you know the Chargers lead the entire AFC in first quarter or first half takeaways? Chargers have the most first half takeaways in the AFC with 6, more than any other team in the NFL. AFC, excuse me. A couple things I learned. Clearly, this coaching staff is teaching these guys to bat down balls. I've seen more batted balls in this first 6 weeks than I think I've seen in the last 60 years.
I thought you were going to say 6 years, then you said 60 years.
60 doesn't matter.
Either one would have been right.
And there are so many opportunities for turnovers caused by those batted balls. So many drives ended by batted balls. Love to see it. On the negative side, Chargers offense has to figure out the second half. Some of these drives are brutal. We saw the first half, they were humming, right? And then all of a sudden, second half comes, and we see 6 plays, 12 yards, punt. We saw that 11-play, 63-yard drive for a field goal. So you have the 3 points. Then a 3-play drive for 3 yards, punt. Then a 3 plays for 1-yard drive, punt. Then a 6-play drive for 27 yards, punt. That's your second half. They got to fix that. But overall, again, this is a work in progress. I think this team is finding out who they are and learning what works and what doesn't. I think the balanced approach on offense is important, but keeping themselves ahead of the sticks, that is a lesson learned. That is proof. If you could just stay ahead of the sticks, your offense and Justin Herbert can cook. But you cannot get in down in distances where the defense knows what you're doing. And so them being able to be a little more creative with some of the play action, some of the moving outside of the pocket with the bootlegs and such. Justin Herbert getting healthier, some of the deep shots downfield to set up short plays underneath, and vice versa. Screens, tight ends, all of that stuff. Like, we want to see more of that and continue that. The first script for Greg Ronan team is fantastic. I wish they could just script 60 plays. Why are you scripting 15? Like, come on. But overall, I thought this was a good effort by this Chargers team. Again, a big win. 3-2 versus 2-3, going 2-1 in the division, going up against a Monday Night Football foe in the Arizona Cardinals. You're 2-1 in the division now, second place. You saw the Raiders got trucked again. That's an absolute cluster on that side. The Broncos, I don't think they're going to be very good because of the quarterback situation. It's really going to be the Chargers, and it's going to be the Chiefs. And can the Chargers string some victories? That's what's going to cost this team a chance or bring them an opportunity for some playoff noise. Jake, anything else? We went through a lot. Little rapid fire here before we get out of here.
It's Victory Monday, Dan. You got to feel good about it. It feels like it's been a month, essentially, since we've said those words, given the Pittsburgh game,
84 years.
Chiefs game, the bye week. It's been a long time since we've said that phrase, and it feels good to be back saying it. You just hope now that the preview that you got of the offense a little bit, you can still be objective about it as far as your criticisms of Greg Roman. That's totally fair. But I think of what you saw yesterday in terms of that first half, that was some of his best work. He needs to build on that moving forward. Do not shy away from that.
100%. Chargers are victorious. Victory Monday. Chargers win 23-16, improved to 3-2. Next stop, Arizona, Monday Night Football. We'll have things covered for you. Maybe some surprises, giveaways, special guests. We'll see. But until then, you can find Jake Hefner at Jake D. Hefner, myself at Dan W. Sports. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll talk to you next time on Chargers Unleashed.